Hey, and welcome to another episode of Motors and Meats. One of the questions that I get asked the most about my car, especially from people who have a 996 generation Porsche 911, is where did you get that ducktail? So let's talk about that today. When I first got my car, it was completely stock with the exception of the wheels. The wheels are from either a 997 or from a Cayman or a Boxster 987. They're 19-inch, and Porsche never did put a 19-inch wheel on a 996. So I know that that was a modification, and a lot of you guys know that as well. But other than that, everything else was completely stock with the car. So I've done a lot with this car since I've had it for the last nearly 3 years now. And one of the things that stands out the most is the ducktail. I really like that the pop-up spoiler automatically comes up at speed, but I just really wanted to make the car my own, and I've always loved the look of a ducktail spoiler on a 911. So I began my search for those, and one of the first that I saw was Lee Sibley on That 911 Guy, as his channel used to be called when I was doing my research. Now it's called 9works. Lee has a carbon fiber ducktail on the back of his car, and it takes up the entire deck lid. So not only is the spoiler portion removed, the entire engine cover is removed and replaced with, in his case, a carbon fiber ducktail. And it looks so freaking good. I loved the look of Lee's car after he made that change to it. His car underwent a huge transformation, and I'd invite you to take a look at his channel after you finish this video, of course, and see what all he's done with his car. But that was one of the first influences I had for my car for finding a 996 ducktail spoiler. So I began looking, and prices were all over the place. If you were to get a carbon fiber one like Lee has, you're looking somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000 range for that part. And then there's finishing. It has to be painted, or it doesn't have to be. I suppose if it's carbon fiber, you could leave it bare, but it might stand out a bit in a way that you wouldn't want it to. And in my case, I definitely would not have wanted to leave it as bare carbon fiber. So purchase price plus having it finished and potentially having it fitted. I wouldn't consider myself a bodywork person, and if you're replacing an entire panel of a car, in this case the deck lid, there may be some alignment issues that would need to be refined so that all the panel gaps come out just right. So I thought, let me look at something a little less invasive, and I noticed that there were several listed on eBay that you could find. Some of them replaced the entire deck lid, some were made from fiberglass, but the one that I ended up choosing was about the cheapest one that you can find on eBay. It was about $300 when I bought it, and I think they're going for about $350 now. But it only replaces the pop-up spoiler portion of the deck lid, so it didn't take that much to get the old one off. And once I decided that that's what I was going to do, I ordered it and made a plan for it to be painted with a local body shop, and commenced to taking off the old spoiler myself. So I got the old spoiler off, I broke the brake light, the third brake light on that pop-up portion. So, you know, that's no harm, no foul in this case, because I wasn't going to be using it. But if I ever want to put it back on, which I can because this is fully reversible, I would have to get another third brake light for that spoiler. But yes, I broke that, and everything else came off fine. And before I took the new spoiler to be painted, I test fitted it, because you have to drill holes for your bolts to go through. It comes with a set of bolts that have sort of a I don't know, a flange on the end, so that one end can hold itself in place, and then you have a nut on the other end. So I found some existing holes in my deck lid, so I lined up the spoiler, drilled out those holes, and test fitted it. It looked good, and took it on to the paint shop, had them finish it, and then took my car back to the decal shop and had them put that martini stripe up and over it after it was all finished. And there we had the finished look of the car. The way it sits today, that was really one of the last modifications that you could really tell from the outside what I'd done. I think that I lowered the car after having that done, so you know, slight modification as far as the outside appearance of the car goes after the ducktail, but really that was the icing on the cake, just putting that ducktail on there. What else? Let's see. So what do I think about it? Well, it's a fiberglass part that you can buy for $350, so compared to a carbon fiber $3,000 unit, it is noticeably not perfect. I will tell you that. And take a look at these gaps here. You can see how on one side, if you're looking very closely, you have a little bit more gap between the deck lid opening where the old pop-up spoiler used to be, versus on the other side where you have a little bit tighter gap. And I know I've personally seen 2 other cars and seen pictures of a few other cars beyond that that have this exact same spoiler, and they all seem to have that exact same slight imperfection on it. And it may be addressed differently by the different car owners, how they handled it, because you know, when you set it down in place of the pop-up spoiler, you have some wiggle room. You have to kind of decide where you're going to put it before you drill those holes and permanently decide where it's going to go. So maybe somebody else had a better solution for it, but it does look like they were made pretty well identical to one another, so it wasn't necessarily a fluke that mine had that extra gap on one side. Does it bother me? It did bother me. It did bother me whenever I first got it mounted to the car, test fitted. Man, I was pretty upset about it, and I was like, I don't know, I'll go ahead and get it painted. I've got this scheduled, we'll take a look at it. And once it was painted and I put it on there, I was like, I don't think this is going to bother me in a couple more weeks. So today, no, it doesn't bother me at all. The car is not a show car, for crying out loud. It is a driver. I did the math, and in the last year's time, I have put 25,000 miles on this car. That's since September of last year. It's currently September 2022. 25,000 miles in a year's time. That's a lot for any car, much less a car that some people would deem as collectible or you know, a weekend car. But yes, I drive the wheels off the car. Is it functional? You know, it sits at about the same angle as the pop-up spoiler, and it has about the same projection. I know whenever I look in my mirror, I can see the word Porsche that's across the bottom of the back glass that fits right inside of my martini stripe on the little bit of visible ducktail sticking up, and I could see about that same amount of spoiler sticking up on the pop-up spoiler. So I think that it should be about the same amount of downforce applied as the pop-up spoiler. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm not going to go put this in a wind tunnel. Does it hold up well? That being that I installed it myself and had never done anything like that before, when I did, I was a bit nervous the first time I took it down the highway, and I kept looking in the mirror to see if it was moving around. And I stopped on the side of the highway and shook it and checked and went underneath and looked at the fasteners again, and everything looked solid. So since then, I've done a track day. I've been in excess of 120 miles an hour and more several times, and there's been no issue with the mounting of it. So while we're talking about how it's mounted, let's go around to the back and take a look at where those fasteners come through. So looking at the underside, at first you may not notice anything, but if you'll look here, you'll see these fasteners coming through here all the way across, and then down here I actually have some screws going into the fiberglass. And then there's one more of these type fasteners that's inside of the shroud. I had to pull the shroud off here for that fan to get that in there. But these fasteners do stick down quite a bit, and I noticed the other day that one has been poking against this right here, just, you know, small little indentation. Not that big a deal. So I would recommend to you, once you get these installed and are totally satisfied with it, cut those off. Get an angle grinder or something and cut those off, especially if you don't think that you're going to take them off anytime soon, because you know you may mess up the threads, but that won't really matter. And one other thing to point out is the wiring for the pop-up spoiler. If you look right here, you have this harness, and I've just lit the side of this loom here, and there's 3 wires that you need to cut. There is a brown, and then there's a brown blue, and then there's a brown orange. Now there's 2 browns. You can see on the right there, that's a thicker brown. We're gonna leave that one alone, and you just need to focus on the thinner one. All 3 wires you're gonna cut are gonna be the same size. So you cut those wires and twist them together and wire nut them, and probably want to do a little better job of putting them back in the loom than I did, but this is totally functional. What that does is it keeps you from having a warning on your dash that you have a fault with your spoiler. Anytime you're talking about customizing your car, you're going to have opinions, either yours or someone else's opinion, and it's a matter of opinion as to whether you like this or not. So do I care if other people like it? No. No, that's not true. Entirely, that's not true. I definitely care what people think. You know, that's my personality. I definitely care what people think. But do a lot of people like it? Yes. Have I had lots of positive feedback on it? Yes. And I'm very curious what your feedback on it is. I'd love for you to put in the comments, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know what you think. Should I have done something different with it? Should I have waited and, you know, saved more money and bought the carbon fiber unit like Lee Sibley has, or one of the other ones that you would recommend? My favorite angle looking at the car is kind of that rear quarter angle where you see the ducktail and you see just the thin outline of those headlights. I love the way the headlights look on a 996, especially 996.1. I'm probably a weirdo. You're probably a 997 guy or a 993 guy, and you're like, what is this guy smoking? No, I actually love my headlights. I love the way race car headlights always seem to have that lens covering up the actual headlight, and that's kind of what you get with this. But we're not talking about headlights today, are we? Anyway, that particular view is my favorite. That way you see the ducktail, you see all the body lines, and you see a glimpse of that beautiful 996.1 headlight. Thanks for watching today. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. I'm always posting things about this car, other cars, and definitely barbecue. No barbecue today, so keep your mouth watering, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching.